Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Inside the Pigskin. And boy, I have a great crew tonight. And I am looking forward to the end of the weekend when I get to tackle something I've always wanted to do and cover the Rolex 24 and see if I can cover an event for 24 hours in a row. Sorry to tell you this, Mel, but there'll be a lot of caffeine keeping me rolling for that 24 Rolex. So my plan is survive and grab a lot of content and share it across the South Florida Tribune YouTube channel. But before we get to the Rolex 24, we have a great show ready to roll tonight. And we're going to be talking a lot about obviously the playoffs and other things. Stay tuned throughout the broadcast. This is a show that will have a lot of different moving parts. But that said, I'm going to go right to left. Candy, well, you just got done with chicks and salsa. How did that go for you?
It went great. Come watch.
There you go. And Jordan Long getting ready for the Super Bowl. So glad he made his appearance now before he has to deal with the sideline sports meeting next year.
Right. Yeah. It'll be fun. I'm looking forward to it.
Well, soak it all in, Jordan. I've been to 4 in person, and it's great. You know, the experience you take there to me are going to be priceless. And all I'm going to tell you, you have one big requirement when you go out there and come back. You better have a lot of stories, Jordan. That's all I'm going to tell you, my friend. And I know that you'll be able to easily meet that. So go out there and get him, Jordan. We're proud of you. All right. So back, my running back, Melvar Jr. Welcome back, partner.
Great to be back.
And Travis Holmes, boy, we just have to keep this guy going, don't we, Travis? I'll tell you, we brought him on once. I thought he was good enough, so he's coming back again and again whenever he wants to do it. Welcome back, Mr. Bacon. Travis, is that your nonverbal communication of saying that you're glad to be back? Because obviously we want to make sure that you can hear us loud and clear. All right.
And that we can hear him loud and clear. Which
you can't hear me
right now.
There you go.
Oh, now we can.
You can't hear me.
All right.
Yeah, no, we're good now.
Okay.
All right. Welcome back to the big show, Mr. Bacon. How you doing, buddy?
Man, I'm doing well. Thank you for having me again.
Oh, it's a pleasure having you, Travis. Let me tell you, it really is. And Rick Curdy, well, what can I say? We got you once this week, so we're going to make your one appearance of the week really count. So welcome back, Rick.
Thanks for having me, Scott.
You're very welcome. All right. Well, you know what? We have a busy agenda, and I believe there's no doubt that we have to start off with the Dallas Cowboys have lost 7 straight in the divisional round, longest losing streak by any team since 1970. And Dak Prescott, I like the way he gets on field goal kickers because a field goal kicker had every reason to get back on him. So Dak blew it again. But again, I'm not surprised because of what I saw in Jacksonville and other points. So I'm going to turn it around the horn here. We're going to let Jordan and Candy will conclude every subject that we have. What are your thoughts about Dak's latest act?
You got to give credit to the San Francisco 49ers defense. They kind of limited Dak Prescott, but he still threw a couple of interceptions. I thought he was a little more timid than he normally is. Plus, I think what really hurt them in that game was Tony Pollard going down because, of course, they have a good tandem when Pollard and Ezekiel Elliott are going, but then you had Pollard go down. But as for Dak Prescott, he can get to the divisional round. He is not what I would say an elite quarterback until he gets past the divisional round. So I do see them being a playoff team next year, but it's just a matter of can he get past this roadblock?
Yeah, you'd say that again. All right, Mel, Dak, what is the deal with this guy?
He played poorly. I mean, he picked the worst day he possibly could to play as poorly as he did. The couple of interceptions that he had, it looked like he already had it predetermined that that's where he was going with the ball. One of them, the kind of receiver kind of didn't really help him by kind of drifting away from the ball after he was held by the DB. But still, it looked like Dak already had in his mind that he was going to go there with the ball. You know, if you think back to when Dak's rookie year, they're a very run-oriented football team. I mean, Ezekiel Elliott was running the football very well. I mean, that was, his best year running the football. And Dak was really complimentary. And, getting away from that, if you're asking Dak to drop back 60% of the time, 65% of the time, you're doing Dak a disservice. That's not who Dak Prescott is. You need to run the football at least at least, or at a minimum, 50% of the time. It needs to be 50-50. And Dak needs to be complementary to that. Anytime, Dak can't carry the team. He's shown that. He makes very poor decisions in very critical situations. And in this game here, every throw is a critical situation. The defense did their job. Yeah, we can say Tony Pollard went down, but Zeke's making a lot of money. I mean, you got to feed him the ball, give him the ball, and hope that he can continue to move the football down the field, that they can continue to control the line of scrimmage. I mean, San Francisco is a difficult team to run the ball against, but you got to try. I mean, you got to continue. You got to do it at least to keep them honest, so that you can have that play action game,
Mm-hmm.
and then that Dak becomes that complementary player that he was his rookie year.
All right, Candy, you have some activity in the chat room. Go ahead.
So Will is saying the 49ers are tough. He agreed Pollard went down the moment shifted and knew all along during the game that the 49ers would win.
Well, okay. Well, you know what? I predicted the 49ers would win anyway, so I agree with Will. All right, we'll take it over to Travis.
Yeah, I kind of have to echo a lot of what Mel just kind of laid out for us. At the end of the day, we knew that the Cowboys, for them to win, would have to play a certain type of game. They were going to have to play sort of that same type of game they played when they had Cooper Rush quarterbacking, frankly, to have Dak as that complementary piece. They were going to have that 50-50 split. They were going to have to try to be able to keep the game close enough to continue running the ball. They did half of that. The defense kept the game close enough for them to be able to try to run the ball, to try to establish, to try to shorten the game, et cetera, and just capitalize on those, red zone opportunities. What they didn't do is they didn't continue running the ball, right? Like Zeke had 10 carries in the game. Tony, before getting hurt, only had 6. Like they had those opportunities to try to keep establishing that running game, and they kind of got away from that and put it on Dak's shoulders. And we've seen them do this in the past. It generally doesn't work out very well. It's not to say he's a bad quarterback. It's simply to say, hey, this is not who he is. If you continue trying to put the game on his shoulders, the more opportunities you give him to throw the ball, the more likely it's going to be that he's going to throw that interception, or something good is not going to happen. That's kind of what it was here. Unfortunately, so some of that does go on coaching, from not hiding him from himself, I guess, if that's the best way of saying it. And some of that's just on the player for not making the best decisions. The play that Mel was discussing was the Michael Gallup play. When Gallup's drifting away from Dak, Dak knows when he hits his third step, he's throwing to Gallup, because Gallup has the size over the cornerback and he drifts backwards. It looks really bad on the replay, but when you see him when he throws it out of the break, it's like, okay, that makes sense. He thought he had the guy who had inside leverage on the cornerback. The receiver drifts backwards and the cornerback stays in place, and it looks like it's nearly a pick 6. But the other one, there's no excuse. I mean, Dak still almost threw 2 other interceptions, one that could have ended the game to the middle line, to the Mike linebacker later. So no matter how you slice it, Dak did not have the game that you want to have, but at the same time, neither the coaching failed him on a few occasions, and I don't know where they go from here.
Rick?
Dak is overrated. He's Tony Romo 2.0. He cannot win the game. He's not a franchise quarterback. They never should have given him all that money. That's just the truth about him. If he didn't have that star in his helmet and he played for the Panthers, he would be irrelevant. Nobody would care. But because he plays with the Cowboys, of course, they're the most popular team in the NFL, no doubt about it. But he's just not a franchise quarterback. He played poorly against the Commanders, okay? He lost to a rookie quarterback. Sam Howell looked great. Dak, not so good. So that's just who he is. Ezekiel, he's just not the same anymore. He's not. They're going to have to restructure his contract or do something, get another running back. He's just not the same. They have to get those two working together. Dak is just not that pressure cooker quarterback like a Tom Brady or even a Joe Burrow. That's just not who he is. So, but, they could criticize Mike McCarthy. He's done a good job, but, to me, the Cowboys are cursed ever since Jimmy Johnson left. And that's Jerry Jones. This is all Jerry Jones, and they just can't win it, I know they won one with Barry Switzer, but that was Jimmy Johnson's team. We all know that. But Dak is just not the franchise quarterback.
That was called a gift. Okay,
Yeah.
with that said, I'm going to turn over to Candy.
How many games this year, can anybody answer me, did Dak not throw an interception in?
The ones he didn't play.
There's 3
That's a
games.
good
I
observation.
was going to say 3. Yeah.
Buccaneers, Vikings, and Lions. He threw 15 picks during this year. That is the most he has thrown in his career. He had the second worst QBR rating of his career this year. He was only 91.1. His lowest was in 2017 at 86.6. So he throws interceptions. He's not a great quarterback. And we can all say he got so much money and if he's so good, why is he throwing so many interceptions? You can't tell me that all of the other defenses are that much better. I mean, the Commanders got 1 interception on him. Buccaneers, Bears, Packers, Giants, Texans got 2 interceptions on him. He's not the quarterback to take you to that next level. He's not an elite quarterback to get you through the rounds of all the playoffs to get you to the Super Bowl.
The only thing I'm going to add about Dak Prescott is this. Here's the deal. Where do you get the gall to criticize your field goal kicker who's been pretty consistent all year and he had a bad game? I don't care if he missed an extra point against the Niners. That has nothing to do with it. And how many games have you cost your team? So here's what it comes down to. You got 1 more year where he has guaranteed money that they have to pay him. So as far as I'm concerned, if he can't get the Cowboys deeper into the playoffs, I think after next year, you move on from him and you find somebody else. Okay, period. Dak, you can't get it done, but you like to chew out field goal kickers. How many times will Brent Maher have an opportunity to chew you out for the 15 interceptions that you had? Think about it. I'm going to go back to the thing that I've been consistent since I'm saying about Dak Prescott, okay? And I don't watch a lot of movies, but oh goodness, I remember when I did have the patience many years ago to watch one. There was a G-rated movie called Gus about the mule kicking field goals. And I'm going to tell you right now, if you're going to criticize Maher, the Cowboys bring back Gus. Who knows? You can find a mule to kick 100 some odd yards, but Dak, please, before you start criticizing the kicker, take accountability for your own sake. Because you know what? I'm going to go back to what Rick said, okay? Tony Romo 2.0, whatever you called it. That's okay. But Dak Prescott, to me, is the most overpaid player in the National Football League. And his playoff record is so indigent. I don't have to say much more on it. And I'm not, because I got better topics, but I had no choice but to lead off of this one.
Scott, can I time out? Can I quick say something? One of the things on Chicks and Salsa, we were talking about Dak and him chewing out Brett. And one of the things we said is people are commenting on Josh Allen and all them and their tirade with Stephon Diggs. One of the things we said about Stephon Diggs and Josh Allen is they were having a heated discussion, eye level, talking one-on-one. Dak was on over the top of Bill Maher, yelling at him, kind of like, I'm above you, yelling down at you.
Interesting.
You don't do that. If you're going to talk to your teammates and you're going to be upset, talk to them. You can be in a heated discussion because you have passion. You're talking with passion, but don't stand over him and like you're above him and he's, below you and demeaning to him.
Right. Well, that's a good point. And you know what? The only thing I'll add to Stephon Diggs as we move around a little bit to these other subjects is, to me, give me a Stephon Diggs all day long with all his passion. I'll take him all day long. I have nothing against him. He wants to win in the worst way. And unfortunately, he was caught up in the heat of the moment afterwards. And
you don't think Josh Allen wanted to win? I mean,
he did.
He had pressure in his face. He was doing the best he could.
Well, they both were. I mean, but
Stephon can't see that. The ball, one of the passes I can understand was low, and he probably could have got it up. He could have got that one pass up that he was telling him to get the pass up. But some of the other passes, he was just lucky to get him out.
Right. Mm-hmm. Well, I'll tell you this, Mel. I'm more tolerant of Stephon Diggs than I am Dak Prescott demeaning a kicker. That's all I'll say about it. All right, we're going to talk about rookie quarterbacks who lead their team to a conference championship. Got 5 pretty good ones, I should say. Tampa Bay, Sean King in 99. Ben Roethlisberger did it with the Steelers in 2004. Joe Flacco, yes, with the Baltimore Ravens another lifetime ago in 2008. Mark Sanchez, 2009 with the Jets. And here you go, Brock Purdy. Well, the only thing I can say about it, that's a pretty interesting stat here. So you know what? I'm going to go as I continue to go around the clock with Jordan. What are your thoughts about that?
It's pretty amazing to listen to those rookie quarterbacks. I mean, Mark Sanchez didn't do a whole lot after that, but you're talking about Joe Flacco, who won a Super Bowl, Ben Roethlisberger, who won a Super Bowl, and now Brock Purdy has a chance to do it. I know they didn't do it in that year, but they at least kept with their teams to go to a Super Bowl and win it. It's amazing what Brock Purdy's done. I mean, he's Mr. Irrelevant, last pick in the draft, and yet he's leading his team to the NFC Championship game. Can he get it to the Super Bowl? That's the only question. They do have the team, but it's up to him to do it. But still, what he's doing as a rookie quarterback is unbelievable.
Well, I'll add this because I'm not going to provide too much of an opinion there. Mark Sanchez got there on the coattails of Rex Ryan's defense is what he did. And he was a game manager with the Jets. And I will not comment on this afterwards because I want to move it along, the show along a little bit. But Rex Ryan is a heck of a defensive coach, and Mark Sanchez was a game manager. All right, Rick.
Yeah, it's very impressive. Roethlisberger, he's a Hall of Famer. Mark Sanchez, Mr. Butt Fumbler, but, he did that. And I agree, it's Rex Ryan's defense, just like Joe Flacco. That Ravens defense with Ray Lewis was phenomenal. He's a really good quarterback. Purdy is it's amazing. Is just like if I was a writer and I wrote a story and I sent this screenplay to like a movie studio, they say, we're not going to film it. This is not believable. This is not realistic. But yet we're seeing it. You never hear about Mr. Irrelevant. That's why they're called Mr. Irrelevant, because they're irrelevant, not him. He just came out of nowhere, been playing great. I'm interested in what he does next season, because next season is going to be the real test for him, because they have all off season to look at film work, break it down, see what they have. There's not much they can look at right now except what he's done in college. So, but other than that, what he's doing is great. You got to keep up with him. Even if Garoppolo comes back healthy, you got to keep Purdy in there. He's the hot hand. He's playing like a veteran. And the 49ers to me are like they're the hot, them and the Bengals are the two hottest right now in the NFL.
Turn over to you, Travis.
I'm just taking in what I'm hearing from all these intelligent football minds, and I'm agreeing with some of it. On some of it, I'm like, I don't know. Like for instance, the hot hand comment. I've never been a believer of the hot hand thing. I think that's like momentum or potential. I don't think it actually means anything in true football terms. Like, hey, if I have this other guy and I have Joe Namath backing him up, Joe's getting the reps. I don't care if the other dude's on an 11-game winning streak. Like, that doesn't matter to me. So it's a weird thing. But as far as Brock is concerned, it's funny because a few of the guys you named all had great defenses in front of them. You got Big Ben. You got that Pittsburgh Steelers defense. He didn't have to do much his rookie season because he just stepped into a situation and just run the offense. Just run the offense. Don't make too many mistakes. And you're good to go. Same thing with that Mark Sanchez thing. And then you kind of later saw who he really was, and that kind of helps. Basically, your job is to run the offense and don't make mistakes. As long as you can not make mistakes, you'll be all right. So to that same, in that same vein, I'm saying the same thing about Purdy. He's running the offense. This game was generally impressive, but it was impressive because they didn't really need him to be anything more than meh, and he was just that. Like, you're talking no touchdowns, you're talking no turnovers. You're simply saying, hey, keep the chains moving. Let us keep being able to run the ball and play field position and play tight defense. And he did just that. And that's great. And I just don't know when they need him, when they need to lean on him, what's that going to look like? And that's kind of where I'm just waiting to see what happens when Kyle Shanahan's genius comes to an end and it's guys versus guys. Where does it go from there?
All right, Candy, to the chat room.
It's really impressive. Two of those guys, Flacco and Roethlisberger, have won Super Bowls. Roethlisberger won his Super Bowl in the second year. I think Garoppolo gets traded, and 49ers keep Lance and Purdy.
Okay, with that said, and that's the visual on it. So with that said, what I'm going to do is turn over to Mel, and you can chime in on both of those comments.
You know, I think Mark Sanchez, I think he went to 2 AFC championship games. You know, you got to understand the draft is an inexact science. There's a lot of guys that have gone on to success that have not been first round draft picks. I mean, Tony Romo wasn't drafted at all, if I'm not mistaken. He was a free agent, and he had a pretty good career. I mean, he threw for a lot of passes in the NFL. There have been guys who've been drafted later in the draft, maybe not as late, in the 7th round like Brock Purdy, but I mean, there's other guys that have not, have been drafted later. Kirk Cousins wasn't a first round draft pick. He's had a pretty good career in the NFL. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. So really, it doesn't surprise me. Some of these guys just need an opportunity. Now, had Trey Lance and Garoppolo never gotten hurt, we wouldn't be witnessing this. He wouldn't have this opportunity. And I think, it just shows the type of competitor that he is and the type of player that he was ready. And when his number was called upon, he was ready. He went out there and performed. You look at Dak. I mean, Dak was in a similar situation. He wasn't a first round draft pick when he came out. Now, he might have been a first round talent or a second round talent. He had that little DUI thing that dropped his draft stock. But Dak wasn't the first. Nobody thought Dak was going to start. Nobody certainly thought that Dak was going to play the way that he played his rookie year. But he had an outstanding rookie year. But so it doesn't really surprise me what this kid is doing. Sometimes these guys just need an opportunity. Now, Dak he's a little bit more comfortable now. He's a little more daring now than what he was his rookie year. His rookie year, I think he only threw 4 interceptions, and I think he had about 32 touchdown passes, if I'm not mistaken. So he's a little bit more daring now than he was his rookie year because he knows, his position is solid there in Dallas. He knows he doesn't have to look over his shoulder. He knows that he's the guy there. Brock Purdy knows any mistake he makes that he knows that he's on a very short leash.
Right.
And he cannot afford to make mistakes because it's not a matter that he'll get sent to the bench. He'll get sent home. That's where his next position is going to be. Is going to be at the house, sitting next to his mom and dad on the couch. So he has no room for error, and he's
right.
All he's had to do and what he's done is he's made sure that he's not the reason why they lose. And he's made some good plays. They keep saying, well, we'll wait till he does this, have to do this, have to do that. He's made plays. He's made plays with his legs. He's gotten outside the pocket, made some nice throws. He just has not been the reason why San Francisco lost the game. He's actually, he's not just managing the game. He does do some managing of the game, but he also makes plays when plays need to be made. So I take my hat off to the guy. He's done an outstanding job. And it really doesn't surprise me because I've watched the guy play. I've always been a firm believer. I'd much rather, if I'm a GM, I'd much rather draft a guy that's had 3 or 4 years in college versus the flash in the pan guy. I'd never liked the guy who just shows up his senior year, throws a whole bunch of yards, or shows up his junior year, throws for a whole bunch of yards, and then all of a sudden, he's, the guy that everybody wants, and he's the guy that everybody wants to take in the first round. Similar to what we have, with the guy over there with the Jets. He's a flash in the pan. He was a workout warrior. They saw that one pass where he did that little thing and threw it a long ways. Reminds me of the guy that got down on one knee and threw the ball through the goalpost that the Baltimore Ravens drafted in the first round. The guy came from Cal. I can't think it was a Cal Bowler or something like that. The guy didn't do anything in college, but he got down to the 50-yard line on one knee and threw the ball through the upright. Oh, we got it. This guy's a first-round talent.
Right. Well, let me address a couple of things with Will in the chat room real quickly on my own. Well, I believe Garoppolo is a free agent, isn't he, Jordan? So he's not going to get traded. If he's going anywhere, it's on his own.
Yeah, I think that was part of his deal.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah, Brady was a 6th-round pick. And, I've covered enough NFL drafts of the Lions, the Miami Dolphins, and Jaguars. And, those hidden gems, you can see a lot of them generally in rounds 3 through 7, much less undrafted free agents.
Joe Montana, he wasn't drafted very high.
Well, I believe he was a 3rd-round pick on Notre Dame.
Yeah. I mean, he wasn't a first round, but 3rd round. But he's a legend.
Well, good. I'm glad you're going to say this, Rick, because I'm going to segue to Montana. Somehow, some way, I think your 4 eyes are going through this computer and reading what I'm going to say. But I'm glad you mentioned. But those hidden gems, definitely in the NFL, you can see them generally in rounds 3 through 7, going to undrafted free agents. Just want to get those out to you, Will, so you have a little bit more insight on that. All right, Candy, go ahead.
So this isn't the first time Jalen Hurts is going to play Brock Purdy. They actually played. Hurts was on Oklahoma back in 2019, and Purdy was on Iowa State. Oklahoma jumped out to a lead. They were leading 42-21 at the beginning of the fourth quarter. Purdy led his team back. They ended up losing the game 42-41 only because they tried to go for 2 on their last scoring play, and they missed getting the 2. So they have played each other. They have a history. This isn't the first time Purdy is like, I mean, yes, we all talk about he's Mr. Irrelevant, but that doesn't mean he was bad going in. It just means that people didn't eye him compared to other. He's a good, I mean, look at that. A quarterback to come back against Jalen Hurts, 42-21 down in the fourth quarter. We're not talking halftime. So just be careful because he can creep up on you.
Well,
he had better stats that game too.
Yeah, I'll say one thing about Brock Purdy, and maybe people really need to understand this. The guy came from a Power 5 school. He did. Okay. He came from a Power 5 school. And as a result, to me, he played 3 or 4 years. So he's ready to go. So to me, anybody that's going to sit here and try to undermine what he's done is another thing. So I just want to point out that Inside the Pigskin can be heard on iHeartRadio, Apple, Spotify, Google, or wherever you get your podcast. Please hit the red subscribe button on YouTube, South Florida Tribune. We're striving for 1,000 subscribers and then some. So who's left to comment on this? I miss anybody? Got y'all accounted for. Good stuff. All right. Well, you know what? Rick Curdy tipped his hat, so I'm going to let him lead off on this one. All right. So according to 49ers faithful, I picked this up here, okay? Joe Montana is a true GOAT. Went to 4 Super Bowls, won them all with few rules, protection, and me and my receivers called his own plays, no radio and helmet, no tuck rule, no deflate gate or spy gate, just me and my men. So I'm going to ask you, Rick, and then we're going to go, I'll whip it around here again. Can anybody make a case that Joe Montana is the greatest of all time?
I mean, you can. I mean, but I still would have Brady because of the Super Bowls and how many he appeared in, and his numbers are much, much greater than Joe Montana's. I love Joe Montana. If I was the coach and I needed to win a Super Bowl, I'd pick Joe Montana over Tom Brady, no doubt, because he was that clutch. So I can see people saying that. And it's true. The NFL right now, you can't even you sneeze on the quarterback and you get a flag. Right. I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean, that's why Brady is played so long, because you can't tackle him. You tackle him, you'll probably be banned from the NFL. You can't touch him. But when Joe Montana played, man, they played on AstroTurf. It was like cement. I remember getting body slammed on the ground. So I mean, you can say that, but it's also like tennis. You know, when Rod Laver played, they played with wooden rackets. Now, is he better than Federer? Is he better than Nadal? You can make that case. Or is Bjorn Borg better? I mean, you can make this case over and over. But for me, I would pick Brady. But I could see an argument over Joe Montana. But to me, it's Brady.
I want to point out something else, too, that around my 30th birthday, I had an opportunity to see Joe Montana against the Detroit Lions. And the Lions lost 24-3 over at Candlestick Park. But you know what? After reading this information, I have to tell you, Joe Montana to me is a guy I probably might hold a little bit of an edge. He's 4 for 4 in the big game. And I'm going to go by what you said, Rick. Hey, listen, I know what AstroTurf's all about. At the Hubert A. Humphrey Metrodome, I actually had to have fluid out of my knee because they played on concrete and AstroTurf. Yeah. And if you didn't know that the Pontiac Silverdome was the same surface too, just AstroTurf on cement. So
they played at nice stadium. They didn't have nice stadium. They were all shared. They were all baseball parks. I mean, they played at Candlestick Park.
Well, that's true. Multi-purpose stadium.
And it was a horrible ballpark. I remember the Giants played. It was horrible. And like I said, now they have these nice, cushy, state-of-the-art, fields. I mean, they're fantastic. But back when he played, and when I saw football, they were all multi-purpose stadiums, and that AstroTurf was rug. It hurt.
Well, they were. I mean, I saw games at Tiger Stadium and all that, but I'm going to lean toward Montana after reading all this. And I want to repeat this again. This just blows me away. You're talking, like I said, he won them with few rules, protect, protecting him and his receivers, calls his own plays. No radio in the helmet. That's a kicker right here. No tug rule, no deflate gate or spy gate. Just him and the men. All right, you know what, Jordan? What do you think?
I know a few years ago I would have had, Montana over Brady because of the fact that he was 4-0. Yes, there were fewer rules when Montana played. He, like you said, he was calling his own plays. I know it's very hard to compare eras, but since we're doing it anyway, I still have to go Brady. Brady has all the records. He has 7 Super Bowls to Montana's 4. I have to just go with Brady because of the fact that he's probably the greatest quarterback that I have ever seen. Since when Montana was playing, I was, too young to remember him. So I'm aging myself a little bit. But with Brady, you're talking about a 6th or 7th round pick. I know Montana wasn't that high of a pick either, but what Brady has been able to do throughout his career and be consistent and win 7 Super Bowls as opposed to Montana's 4, that's where I have to go. You know what? The Super Bowls mean more. I have to go with Tom Brady.
I used to think that Dan Marino's 60,000-yard career was unbreakable, but boy, because of the rule changes, how quickly that Marino fell down the yardage chart. All right, Travis, you had a chance to listen to 2 of us. Please draw your own conclusion. If I know you, you'll probably go with Brady as well, but I may be wrong. Go ahead, prove me wrong.
You are wrong. I am absolutely going with Montana, which is an interesting thing. Not because Brady's championships aren't, legitimate or anything along those lines. I'm not one of those, deflate gate or any other of the random gates they're involved in, people. But I will say that is a small asterisk at minimum. Like, all right, cool. I'm not going to forget that those things happen. I'm also not going to forget that one of those championships is the tuck rule championship. I'm not going to forget that there was a lot of these rules that made these things happen that had nothing to do with Tom at all. Like, literally was his defense carrying him or a rule change or fill in the blank thing. I mean, you're talking 3 of those championships just on that. All right, cool. And then we're saying, hey, I play cornerback. I'm a defense guy. I have a passion to defense. You can't play defense these days. And through the majority of Brady's career, you can't play defense. They made it illegal to hit guys. You can't hit low. You can't get too high. You can't clothesline guys. You can't, bump and run them down the field past 5 yards. All these things that were illegal in Montana's day, right? They could bump and run literally the whole length of the field. You could hold the whole length of the field in the 80s. Like, these things aren't like, so when you're saying who's the greatest, in my head, you're asking, hey, how would Brady play in the 80s? And that's not comparable. That guy might not have made it past 30, 35 in the 80s. And he's not a mobile quarterback like that. He already got hurt when he was 30, 31. I don't see him lasting even close to as long as he's lasted right now to get to those 7 championships. If you put Brady back in the 80s NFL football, and that's the piece where I'm like, I gotta grade Montana on the curve just based on that. And that's why I'm going with Joe.
You know what, Travis? I like when people tell me I'm wrong because I'll just put you in the GMTA category. Great minds think alike. So I'm good with that. I'm glad I have an ally on the Montana side. So, all right, Mel, you've heard the rest of us, and we get candy after that. Go ahead.
Yeah, you can make an argument for Joe Montana being the best. I mean, before Tom Brady went on the run that he's gone on, I think people probably thought of him being the best because when you think about the best, you're thinking about championships. You aren't talking about the best thrower of the football. Was he the best thrower of the football? No, he wasn't the best thrower of the football. Did he have the most yards? No, but the game was different back then. We ran the football a lot more. And, of course, I got an opportunity to see him up close and personal. So, there could be a little bias there. I mean, I respect what Tom has done. Don't get me wrong. I mean, it's kind of like who's the greatest basketball player? Very seldom does Bill Russell's name come up when you talk about that, and he's got more championships than everybody. He won 11 championships in 13 seasons, if I'm not mistaken. Mm-hmm. And very seldom does his name come up. Obviously when he passed away, people wanted to start giving him his flowers, but he played. He played in a different time. There weren't as many teams and so forth and so on. So he's not. And of course, a lot of people didn't see him play. So they don't have the same respect for his game as they do a LeBron James or a Michael Jordan, who, a lot of people who've had an opportunity in our age bracket have had an opportunity to watch their careers. A lot of these young kids really don't know who Joe Montana is, but Joe Montana, he was the benchmark for quite a period of time. Now, things change. Yeah, the game has changed. It's not the same. It's not as violent as it used to be. It's more pass oriented, which it wasn't back then. So guys may have moved ahead of him, and of course, Tom Brady, with the number of Super Bowls that he's won, I mean, he's in my opinion, without question, he's the GOAT because of the amount of Super Bowls that he won, regardless of what the rules are. You got to play with the rules the way that they are, and he's able to utilize those rules. But winning NFL games is not easy. I can tell you that firsthand. It is not easy. Doing what he does and what he's done for 20 some odd years, that's not easy. Still having the mind to want to go out there and put your body through the things that he's putting his body through, it takes a special type of human being to do that. And he's been able to do that at a high level for a very long period of time. So in my mind, without question, he's the GOAT. And not because of the numbers, not because of all the passing yards, but because of the championships primarily.
Referring to Tom Brady. All right, before I turn to Candy, we'll just let her read this. Will Vogel, go ahead.
Will Vogel says Brady, Montana, Breeze, Manning. That's my top 4.
Pretty hard to argue that.
Which Manning? Eli?
Yeah, right.
Where's John Elway? Elway.
Yeah, well, I would put John Elway on my list, but you know what?
I love Breeze, but John Elway.
Yeah, I would go with Elway.
A lot of time, before there was Montana, it was Bart Starr and Johnny Unitas. The rules were a lot different back then. Now you could literally bump and run all the way up and down the field back then, and the league was more. They ran the football. The forward pass really just started becoming a thing. When those guys were playing. So, as football is entertainment, and people want to see. They want to see the ball up in the air. That's what people want to see. That's what's exciting. 3 yards in a cloud of dust is not exciting to most people. A game that ends with a score of, 6-3 is not exciting to most consumers. For me, that's a great game, but for most consumers, it's not a good game.
Well, in Vogel's eyes, he said Elway is 5, but we'll leave it at that. All right, Candy, take your crack at Joe Montana, Tom Brady.
The youngin.
So how did you phrase your question, Scott?
Joe Montana, according to the 49ers faithful, it wasn't a question, Candy. It was mainly him making a case that he can easily be the greatest of all time based on the fact that the rules are so much more hard-nosed then, and they're a lot more relaxed now.
So I think it goes back to what Mel was saying. It depends on how you qualify greatest of all time, and how do you compare? Like, it's hard to compare people that play the sport in a totally different time frame because you have different rules. Your equipment has changed. Your training regimen has changed. You learn more. I'd like to think we learn more about our bodies, but there's different chemicals. There's different things that you use to advantages. And I'm not saying steroids or anything like that, but everything that you use, like they talk about ice baths after games to help your muscles. Like there's so many things that have changed about the game that I think it's really hard for us to compare players that played in different eras. For us to come and say he's the greatest of all time. He's the greatest of our era right now. Yes. Was Joe Montana awesome? Yes. Can I compare the two? I mean, yeah, you can sit there and look at all the different stats like passing yards, and yes, it wasn't as much of a passing as it is now, but Brady's got more than double the total amount of passing yards. So has the game changed that much more that he should have more than double? I mean, he has 92,000 compared to Joe Montana's 40,000. Interceptions. Joe threw 139, Brady's thrown 213. His percentage for interceptions is 1.7 as opposed to Joe Montana's 2.6. There's all kinds of different stats that you can sway somebody to believe one way or the other. And then you've sat and watched and put yourself in that era, it's really hard to judge.
Well, I'll tell you what, though, Candy, I've got an answer for you on this one. I covered Don Shula when I was in the 1980s. And if anybody's ever heard the word Camp Shula, 2-3 a day practices where these guys are getting killed, then let me tell you, I'd like to see if Tom Brady could survive Camp Shula, let alone the way the practices were done, where you had contact 2-3 times a day. They used to have 3 days back then, Candy. So,
I can tell you, these guys couldn't survive it. Trust me. I
well,
went
They're
through that.
spoiled now, and they're so spoiled. That's the problem. They're so spoiled.
I went to those camps up in Greeley, Colorado, where it was 100+ degrees, and
Really?
Dan Reeves was from the old Dallas Cowboy philosophy.
Right.
Man, they bring a whole bunch of folks into camp. You have 150 guys in camp. You might be 10, 15 deep at running back. They didn't care about how much you hit because they just put the next guy in there.
Exactly. Yeah, no, you're right, Mel. I mean, listen, I covered it.
Guys were getting cut every day.
Yeah.
Going to breakfast, man, the guy tell you to come here. I mean, you're getting cut every day. Guys are coming in every day. 150 guys in camp, and that was before the veterans reported.
Right. No, I know. I'm with you. Well, remember, once upon a time, the NFL draft used to be 17, 18 rounds, too. And preseason games, you had 6 of them, 6 preseason games. I'm sure a lot of you guys can't even realize.
They only had 12 regular season games.
Well, I remember the practices, how brutal they were, but they had to change it because of the death of Corey Stringer. But that
came a little bit later, Rick, but I know where you're coming from. But I'm talking about 6 preseason games, and 12 versus 6. I mean, half your season was preseason and come up with your final group. And then all of a sudden it went from 14 mil, I think, down to 4. And then now obviously they've made their most recent. Then you went to 16 and now 17. But you lived it, Mel, and I covered it. And I'll tell you, these players took such a beating. It was unbelievable. And if you look at Dick Butkus as a whole, and the hits that he delivered, oh my God, these guys would be, who knows where their massages would be coming from. And I'm not going any more detail than that, but still what these guys went through is just unbelievable. So Candy, I'm with you in terms of the yards and the numbers, but with the coaches you had back then and the amount of practices during training camp, and I mean, hard
hitting, man. It was.
I'm sure
crazy.
Joe Montana didn't take time off to be alone or go to his Tahiti, and what did he do? He needed some timeout or something. And I can imagine if Joe Montana missed practices, I mean, he would be benched.
True. Yeah. No. So when you talk about different eras, Candy, I'm with you all the way. But there was nothing like covering football back in the 80s and the 90s, especially the 80s and before when Mel's dad played in it. These are outright brutal. I mean, literally brutal. I remember that movie. And
I've seen Dick Butkus do some things that, man, you get arrested for.
Yeah.
He
would break legs, break arms, everything.
I don't think there is any concern. There's no one questioning whether or not Joe Montana could play in today's NFL. Like because a lot of the players are molded like after the kind of quarterback that he was, that dual threat quarterback who can kind of do both things. But we are all questioning whether or not Tom would survive that NFL.
Travis, that's a heck of a point. It really is. If Tom could have survived that era, I know Joe Montana would have a field day in this era.
Oh my God, he would have a bounce chair back there.
Dan Marino wasn't very mobile, and he did pretty good.
Reading a book.
Yeah, but one thing that Dan Marino had going for him, and I watched him play, is he had one of the quickest releases I've ever seen.
And his arm strength was amazing. His arm strength
was good, Rick, but his quick release was it was unbelievable. I mean, to me, Dan Marino. I've never seen a quarterback in my years being around the league that ever had a quick.
Back then, they didn't get after the passer the same way they get after the passer now. I mean, most of the quarterbacks back then were pocket passers. They were statues back there. Jim Everett, he wasn't very mobile, and he could sling it around the yard. They didn't get after the passer the way that they do now. You didn't have all these empty formations like you have now. I mean, it's very seldom would you go empty. I mean, very seldom. They didn't operate out of the shotgun. Most of them were operating under center all the time, and the offenses were run oriented. They ran the ball a lot more, or at least 50-50. I mean, 50-50, 55. Some teams might have been 60-40 run versus pass. So you didn't put your quarterback in harm's way as much as you do now.
No, that's true. But I love the reaction and the laughs from Travis Holmes and Jordan Long about how they talk about Jim Everett. The only thing I'll say that Jim Everett was mobile about is when he wanted to ring Jim Rome's neck on TV on ESPN.
Yep.
But
And
that's
Jim was a good quarterback, man. I like Jim.
He
Jim's a
was.
good
He was
dude.
good with the
yeah, he
Rams.
was. But
Jim's a
Jim
good
Rome
dude.
obviously should have known that you don't take this guy out.
That that wasn't cool. I mean, just
No,
because you have a
it's the
microphone,
first
on
of
put
the
it
your,
loudmouth.
lightly. No, come on, really. No,
Right.
it wasn't cool by any means, but he had more mobility when he wanted to attack Jim Rome on TV compared. No, but
Jim's a good dude, man. He didn't deserve that.
No, yeah, I'm with you. All right, let's go on to an easier topic. But boy, this one was loaded here. A little bit easier one here. Bill O'Brien's returning to New England as the offensive coordinator. All right, you know what, Mel? Go ahead. What do
I
you
told
think
you I'm
about
happy. I mean, I said that last week. I'm glad he's gone because he was terrible in Alabama. Now they have a chance to win a national championship. I think Bill O'Brien's the only offensive coordinator that Tom Brady had that he didn't win a Super Bowl with. So yeah, I'm glad. I mean, it's great for Mac Jones, maybe, I guess. I mean, they did some good things in Alabama. I mean, yeah, Mac and Bill O'Brien did some good things in Alabama. I think it's going to be good for Mac Jones. Hopefully, helping with his development. I think this year here, was a wasted year because, they took a step backwards by not having someone there to help him to continue to develop and grow. So I think it's good for Mac Jones. I think it's good for Alabama. Maybe they get somebody in there. There's a little more creativity, who was more like Lane Kiffin, who was a little bit more creative on the offensive side of the ball. I think Bill O'Brien's just one of those old school guys, and he just lacks creativity when it comes to play calling. And, I think it'll be great up there in up there in New England, doing it the Patriot way, whatever it is that they do, take that stuff on up there. And hopefully Nick Saban hires somebody, maybe Cliff Kingsbury or somebody like that, somebody who's got a good offensive mind, creative mind, get those creative juices going, utilize all that talent that they have there in Alabama. And, we should see Alabama back where they belong, in the college playoffs and compete for national championships.
Yeah, the only thing I'll say about Cliff Kingsbury, if you can find him in Thailand, good luck. He's got a one-way ticket out there, number one. So you don't have to worry about that phone call ever happening. And in the eyes of Jeremy Ballreich, who's a frequent contributor, you got rid of the judge and the Pat Trasha. So it's safe to say that they were demoted somewhere. But I agree with you all the way, Mel. Bill O'Brien will be even more appreciated in New England after the year they had this year with those two bozos. To me, Patricia. Now Ballreich's got me saying Patricia and Joe Judge. So no, it's a great move. All right, Travis. I can't keep a straight face on this one. Go ahead. Maybe you can do a better job than me.
I mean, I honestly don't have much of an opinion on it. This is a weird one because I'm not an Alabama fan, so I've appreciated the fact that he was a terrible OC there, or not as good as an OC. I mean, they still were like top 10 in the nation as far as scoring was concerned, but they're also a team that's going to out recruit anyone. If you're just more talented, you're going to have, a top 10, top 15 scoring team. But as far as Mel was kind of just hinting at, as far as creativity is concerned, as far as like scheming guys open, as far as being in those clutch moments when someone's going to simply line up against you man on man, and can you get those guys open? He wasn't that guy at Alabama for these past 2 years, and frankly, I haven't seen him truly be that guy in as far as his time in the NFL. So great, let's go to New England. I'm a Jaguars fan. Good luck.
There you go. Hey, I'm with you on the Jags part. All right, you know what, Rick? I'm going to give you a chance to comment on this chat real quickly as we move it along. Bill and Mac, I think, will have good chemistry. I agree because of what they did at Alabama. Rick, you can just solely comment on this on your own.
Okay. Well, I got to tip my hat off to Mel because he said this last week that Bill O'Brien should go to New England, and he went to New England. So good job on that one, Mel. And he's going back to New England. I mean, how can you do any worse than Matt Patricia and Joe Judge? I mean, Joe Judge never should have been a head coach. I mean, he should be thrown in jail for impersonating a coach. He was terrible. And Patricia, I mean, he was the defensive coordinator. You made him an offensive coordinator. And that's not fair to Mac Jones. You need a true offensive mind there. And, yeah, it might not – I mean, Alabama's still – I mean, they're still pretty good. That's just how crazy good they are. If they don't win a national championship one year, it's like an off year for them. So, but he needs to go back to the NFL. I think he'll do great. Just keep him there because if you keep changing all these offensive coordinators for Mac Jones, he's just going to fail. And he failed last year, and that's Bill Belichick's fault. He just thought he's this evil genius. I could put, anybody in there, and well, it didn't work out, did it? So Hopefully, Mac Jones will get the tutelage that he needs. Keep Bill O'Brien there for a while. I think they'll do well. The Alabama connection is a great connection. I think it's great. So good for them. Alabama, they're gonna continue being Alabama. They're gonna be in the playoffs. They'll win another championship. They have 2-3 losses. The world's gonna come to an end, and they stink. But that's just how it is now. But they're just Alabama and Bill O'Brien. I think it's. I'm happy he's back in the NFL because in college it wasn't the same when he was in college.
Jordan.
I have to say, I mean, we've all hinted at it that if you look in New England, they didn't really have an offensive coordinator. And because Bill Belichick thought, oh, they can put two coaches together, that'll work. No. Bill O'Brien, going back to New England, I definitely, like Rick said, that's going to really help Mac Jones's development in the NFL. It really went down this year because they didn't have a play caller. Now Bill O'Brien's back, and I honestly think that's where he should stay, is in the NFL. Granted, he is a pretty good offensive coordinator. Didn't really do that a whole heck of a lot that well this year in Alabama, but him going to New England, it just makes sense. It's going to help Mac Jones's development.
Fair enough. All right, Candy.
You can't do any worse than the two that were there this year. So what are you going to judge him on? Anything is better than what those two did. I mean, he's going to be successful just for improving the offense in New England.
All right. The only thing I'll say about it is this past year, Mac Jones regressed. Next year, he'll progress. So we're going to have a few predictions.
Travis wants to say something. He's got something on his mind.
Go for it, partner.
What say you if he doesn't progress? What if he does worse? What if Mac Jones with Bill O'Brien does worse?
You know what? When you're on this show a year from now, present me with that question. But I'll do something right now. And in the words of baseball, and Jordan, I like the way you're laughing, my friend. I expect you to be on this platform a while, Mr. Travis. Okay, so you can throw that curveball at me a year from now, and then I'll take the fifth, which is something I never do anyways. But this is one of those rare moments. So hold your thought for about a year, and then we'll revisit it after the Jaguars get to the Super Bowl. Fair enough?
Appreciate it.
No problem. We appreciate you too. All right, what we're going to do, here's what we're going to do for the rest of the show. We have predictions for two games. Just want to get to them very briefly, and I have a feeling we have a lot of people that have some really strong parting shots. So I want to put a lot of emphasis on the parting shots, a little bit on the predictions because we obviously have no choice but to do it, but at least there's only two games. But that said, you know what, Jordan? Go ahead. Give me predictions. You've got San Francisco at Philadelphia. The game's at 3 o'clock. What do you have?
That's going to be a tough game, but I've got to go with Philadelphia.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, Cincinnati at Kansas City.
Cincinnati has had Kansas City's number. I'm going with Cincinnati, especially since we don't know how healthy Patrick Mahomes really is, and that's going to hurt his mobility.
Fair enough. All right, Rick, you're next.
I got the 49ers, and I have the Chiefs.
Okay. Travis?
I got the Eagles, and I got the Bengals.
Okay. Mel?
Eagles and the Bengals.
Candy?
Eagles and Bengals.
You know what? I'm going with the 49ers and Cincinnati. We've seen this matchup in two Super Bowls before, once at the Pontiac Silverdome in Super Bowl 60, another in Miami. So I could see the 49ers and Cincinnati going at it. And you know what? Joe Burrow to me is just one heck of a quarterback, and I'm not going against him. So I'm going to take the road teams this weekend, 49ers and Cincinnati. All right. Well, you know what? Knowing that we've talked a lot about football, I have to admit there's a couple baseball people here on this panel. So I'm going to talk about baseball. But you know what? We'll give Will his due here and show his prediction, Candy, really quickly.
I've got Chiefs 35-31, Bengals, and 49ers 30, Eagles 27.
There you go. So now you have it from our unofficial seventh person on the crew, but he's doing a good job. Got to give him his props. This guy moves around from one show to another on our network, and we're proud that he's able to make a positive contribution. With that said, let's go to our parting shots. Jordan, lead off, please.
So, of course, we know the Major League Baseball announced their Hall of Fame vote. Obviously, joining Fred McGriff with Scott Rowland. I am so disappointed just because Todd Helton should have been voted in this year. I was looking at it earlier that he was at 50%. It looked pretty promising by the end of the day. Unfortunately, of course, he missed it. You needed 75%. He got 72.2% of the vote, and that was only missed by 2.8%, and that was only 11 votes. Helton is definitely a Hall of Famer. You look at his career, he's a .316 hitter. He also hit home runs with a total of 369, had 2,519 hits. Of those, he could hit the double with 592, which is 20th in Major League Baseball. Helton was a 5-time All-Star, 3-time Gold Glove, and 4-time Silver Slugger award. I know the problem is he spent his whole career in Colorado, but you got to look at it as a whole. He didn't spend 162 games a year in Colorado. 81 of those were on the road. If I look at Baseball Hall of Fame, and this is how I look at any Hall of Fame, can you talk about baseball history, especially with the Colorado Rockies without Todd Helton? The answer is simply no. The voters got it wrong. I really hope they make up for their mistake next year because Todd Helton definitely deserves a spot in Cooperstown.
Well, Larry Walker's in there. There's no doubt. I think that Todd Helton should get in. One of the nicest guys I've ever met. Wrote a story on him many years ago when I was covering the Cactus League, and Todd's just a class act. Few people realize, wasn't he Peyton Manning's backup at Tennessee?
That is correct.
There you go. See, I know my Helton stuff because I remember talking to him. Just a great guy. All right, Rick, go ahead.
Well, I'm going to kind of piggyback what Jordan said, but the Hall of Fame has just become the Hall of Very Good. I don't understand why Todd Helton's not in, but Scott Rowland, 2,077 career hits, 1,287 RBIs, 316 home runs, and he's in the Hall of Fame, and you miss Todd Helton? I don't understand. Why isn't Joe Carter ever mentioned in the Hall of Fame? He won 2 World Series back-to-back. Another guy who hit a home run, remember Bill Mazeroski, who's probably in the Hall of Fame because he hit that game-winning home run in the World Series? Joe Carter did that. Joe Carter also had 396 career home runs, 1,445 RBIs. He was a 5-time All-Star, 2-time World Series, 2-time Silver Slugger. He's also the only baseball player to have 3 straight 100 RBI seasons for 3 different teams. He did it with the Indians, he did it with the Padres, and he did it with the Blue Jays. This guy is a great player. Scott Rowland, I don't know how he got in. Those numbers are they're not that great. Joe Carter, the thing that hurts him is probably his average, 259 average. So and the Todd Helton thing, they totally screwed that up. So hopefully, I think Helton will get it next year. But let's get some love to Joe Carter as well. He should be in as well.
All right, I'll slip one quick local one. And you know what, Jordan, you can read this one if you want to.
Why is Harold Baines in?
Yeah.
Why isn't Parker, Murphy, Manning, Carter, Garvey in? You do have a point. Well, like Rick said, it's a hall of really good. It's not the best baseball players, and that's the problem with the Baseball Hall of Fame. It should be the best baseball players. Unfortunately, it's the Hall of Good.
Okay, fair enough. All right, we'll move over to Travis. What's your parting shot, partner?
My parting shot is I don't know what needs to take place, but something has to happen for this $140 billion business we call the NFL to finally get their crap straight as far as this NFL refereeing situation. I still don't understand why we allow this league that is collectively bargained to pretend they can't hire referees full time, that we can't get some consistent calls from game to game and from regular season to the postseason. The fact that we still have to pretend like, hey, we just don't know how to figure out this whole play clock situation when the clock's been at 0 for 2 seconds and we didn't see it. It's such a weird thing that they're like pretending like there can't be a buzzer or some kind of. We have all this technology in all these ways. The XFL and all these other random football leagues just come out with all these great ideas, and 3 years later they're implementing them in the NFL because hey, that sounded like that made sense. Like no one has common sense for this again $135 billion business. No one's at the door, and it's just wild to me because again some of these calls are becoming obviously really important to a lot of fans, families. People are building literal livelihoods based on some of these calls that aren't being called. And it's just kind of wild that we're still here, talking about the fact that, hey, the play clock was at 0 for 2 seconds and no flag was thrown. Hey, we have a part-time ref that's calling this game, or this crew that literally called no penalties 2 full games in a row against the Chiefs. Sorry, Jags fan, I'm in my feelings about that. As far as no holding calls being called the whole game and things of that nature. So I just would really love to see some consistency from this really rich organization who seems not to care about, consistency there.
That's good. I like that. All right, Mel, give me your parting shot, please.
Just wanted to comment on what Rick and Jordan were talking about. The Baseball Hall of Fame is one of the Hall of Fames that I really don't like, just because of the way that they're voted in and the people who have control of putting the people in. I mean, they lost my respect when Ken Griffey Jr. wasn't a unanimous selection. I knew they were full of crap, because if he wasn't a unanimous selection, I don't know who is. I mean, that just to not vote for him just because, that's not a reason. The guy's flat out was a Hall of Famer. What he did in his baseball career, there was absolutely no reason why he should not have been a unanimous selection for the Hall of Fame. But anyway, my parting shot is, last week I had picked the Cowboys to win, and I'm kind of an evil genius. There was a method to my madness, because neither one of those teams that I particularly care for, the 49ers or the Cowboys. But I used to be a Cowboys fan. That's the problem. But when Jerry, and the way that him and Jimmy, the whole thing fell apart, then that's because of Jerry's ego. Then I really started not liking Jerry, and I kind of I relish, I kind of enjoy seeing Jerry suffer now, as he tries to chase this a Super Bowl before he leaves us here. And it was kind of it again, although I was rooting for them to win, it didn't bother me that they lost, because now I get to hear, I get to see Jerry suffer, and that's always good. That's always does my heart well to see him hurting the way that he's hurting, because one more opportunity has slipped through his fingers, and he really thought he had the team that could go all the way, but because he meddles so much in the teams, all that kind of stuff, it just does my heart good to see the Cowboys lose.
Candy.
I'm going to piggyback off in something that George Eichhorn said last night on Fire Up Wisconsin. We lost last week Sal Bando. He's a former all-star third baseman. He was a 3-time World Series champion for the Oakland Athletics. He was a former Milwaukee Brewer and an executive, and he passed away at the age of 78. He lost his 5-year battle to cancer. He was married to his wife for 54 years. He is part of the reason Bando spent his last 5 seasons with the Milwaukee Brewers, playing on the franchise's first winning team back in 1978 and its first postseason team in 1981. And then he joined the Brewers front office, and he was their GM from October of 91 to October of 99. Thank you, Sal Bando, for giving us your life, your career, and may you rest in peace.
Okay, I've got 2. Number 1, bad move, Bethune-Cookman University. How the heck did you not even ratify Ed Reed's contract? Some of the things I kept reading out of there about how bad the conditions are for Bethune-Cookman University just made me sick. I am not even going to dare to mention what Reed said, but you had a guy that left the University of Miami and wanted to go make an impact for HBCUs at Bethune-Cookman. Candy and I saw Bethune-Cookman get hammered by the Miami Hurricanes. And again, they get hammered by a lot of teams because you can't match up HBCUs with top Power 5 schools. That's not the point. Bethune-Cookman, you got this wrong. I do know that Reed was complaining that his office wasn't even clean, and some of the other things I read to me was just nauseating. Bad move, Bethune-Cookman. You made your bed. You're going to sleep in it, and we'll see from there. Now, on a positive note, I have something that I'm really glad to talk about. Jordan, we all know that John Elway retired on top, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, how would you like to hear about another retire on top story that comes from a state that doesn't get a whole lot of publicity? Ready for this one? South Dakota State Jackrabbits coach John Steigelmeyer announced his retirement less than 2 weeks after the school won its first FCS title. I'm talking about the South Dakota State Jackrabbits. Think about it, okay? John will turn 66 on February 7th, 1957. He took the Jackrabbits to 12 FCS playoff appearances, and he compiled a record of 199 and 112 record in 26 years. Wish you would have got 200, but 199 is not bad when your last one is a national championship. So you know what? All I can tell you, John Steigelmeyer, Mr. Steigelmeyer, I hope you enjoy retirement because you did what a lot of people would like to do, and that's go out on top. But the best thing is you're the best kept secret in the sports world because while people don't follow schools like South Dakota State, North Dakota State, because they're, I believe, at the FCS level. Let me tell you, Will Vogel made an earlier comment about hidden gems. These are the types of schools at the FCS level that discover hidden gems. So good stuff, Coach. Enjoy retirement. Great show by everybody. Candy, take us home.
So if you see that little red subscribe button, please hit it. We'd like you to subscribe, be our 1,000th subscriber on YouTube, South Florida Tribune YouTube channel. If you want to hear us, you can listen to our show on iHeartRadio, Apple, Spotify, Google, or wherever you get your podcasts. If you'd like to listen to more, go to South Florida Tribune YouTube. You can also visit our website at southfloridatribune.com. You can email us at southfloridatribune@gmail.com. Or if you'd like to advertise or sponsor this wonderful show, call Scott 954-304-4941. Twitter is @Tribune South. Okay, Scott?
All right. Well, now is the time of the broadcast where everybody gets to let everyone know how they get hold of you. You know, I've been going right to left all day. I might as well just do it one more time, Jordan Long. We'll see Jordan in about 2 weeks, because he's going to have a date with the Super Bowl in a few weeks. So I hope that Jordan enjoys his Super Bowl experience. I believe you have a meeting with Sideline Sports to coordinate the whole situation. So all we're going to tell you is please bring back us some good stories, partner. All right, let everybody know they get hold of you.
So, of course, you can find me on the South Florida Tribune, either doing Inside the Pigskin or 108 Stitches on the Sideline Sports Network. Mondays with Megan Price's NBA Carousel. I have my own show on Fridays that's Under Review, which is my take on Colorado sports, as well as national stories as well. I also am on various Sideline Sports Network shows when they need me. Of course, read my blog that I write Mondays through Thursdays with podcasts on Fridays at sports-scoop.com.
Great stuff, Jordan. You're a very valuable part of what we do here, and we're very grateful for every opportunity that you're able to come on. Keep up the good work, and I enjoy reading your writing. All right, Rick, go ahead.
You can find me on my website, www.charlottebats.com. We have a petition on there. Please sign it. We're trying to bring Major League Baseball to Charlotte, North Carolina. I'm also on Facebook at Charlotte MLB, Charlotte Bats Baseball. I'm on Instagram at Charlotte Bats. I'm on Twitter at Charlotte Bats Baseball. And I'm also on LinkedIn under Rick Curdy. You have any comments or questions, you can email me at cltbatsbaseball@gmail.com.
Okay, Travis, you're up.
You could find me on Facebook, Travis Holmes, Travis D. Holmes. You can find me on Twitter at Trav Lice Bacon, because again, I have this eating problem. You can find me on the 3pointconversion.com and, consulting with student of the game, Kyle Nash also. Thank you, guys.
Well, Kyle Nash, I'll be reaching out to him within the next couple of weeks when my log jam on the road slows down a little, and I can go back to doing Thursday shows. Lately, I haven't been doing any on Thursday to prepare for life on the road. So we'll be doing some stuff on Thursday in the foreseeable future. With that said, my favorite running back and longtime friend, Melfar Jr.
Find me on all the social media at Melfar Jr., Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram. Follow what we have going on here in Georgia and also in Michigan for the youth at melfar.org.
Well, Candy spoke for us, so I don't have to say a whole lot. So I want to let everybody know we appreciate the Candy being on, Jordan Long, Rick Curdy, Travis Holmes, Melfar, and the impressive comments that Will Vogel made in the chat room. So this is 108 Stitches Baseball Talk. My name is Scott Morgan, Roth the Motor City Madmouth. Pleased to be hosting this show as well as the many others that we have on our network. So on behalf of my excellent crew, we want to thank you very much for joining us on Inside the Pigskin, and we will have another episode next Tuesday night. Meanwhile, everybody have a great week and enjoy the football. Good night, everybody. God bless, and please be safe. And more importantly, live every day as if we're your last. Tomorrow isn't a given. Good night, everybody.
Good night.